Chill here with Sirius, Taurus, Moon, Jupiter hour, and this is Mars day. So, I was stopping at the half moon, and yeah, and VOC. And so, here is the thing about this, and I talked about the fact that elite society operates with myth because this myth is predictive, and that basically people were trying to figure out who is a certain person within the myth, and it wasn't coming from, how should I say that? It was coming from a place of trying to adjust the training to the person and the role in society to the person according to the myth so that they will feel belonging. That being said, Neptune is about to go and meet Eris in the coming 15 years. And Neptune is the myth, and Eris is that which was disincluded from society, but it's also the cloning project. And I think Eris has to do with Dutchess India, which is basically my discovery as an astrologer, if it is true. I would need to look into that. I would need to look into the 1600. I would need to do some research. But I have a feeling with Eris going next to my Mercury, that, and Eris being so affiliated with the cloning project, and the cloning project being so affiliated with the House of Orange, that it has to do with with House of Orange, Dutch East India, and indeed we're talking 500-year cycle. So we're about that cycle. It's basically going to be around Eris' return for VOC. Now, I know that this was a colonialism, that it was one of the most cruel forms of colonialism. It was also cruel to its own people, so much so that when I figured Eris is going next to, my home line and my partner line, I wondered if I should suicide. And this is not for no reason, okay? But it's also exciting because there is a reckoning where people try to figure what is the role of someone in that myth, where the myth itself is supposed to evolve. With Pluto aspects, the myth evolves, and the myth is going to be new mythification, and with Eris, it's going to be very associated with House of Orange. So there are many people trying to predict the myth um, from their own trajectories because they see somebody is belonging in that mythical, and it's not about mythical society, it's about certain people have connections to the outer planets. Those outer planets are represented by myths, and we're going to have discoveries of more outer planets very soon. Think about planet George, which was Uranus, was coinciding with the rebellion of the Dutch East Indies in King George of Britain. It was like, no, but it was the British called, come on. Then why is the American flag the same colors? And why are so many Dutch people both insisting on people speaking the language and naming their children American names? Now, here's the thing. A lot of the horrors that come from United States are actually Dutch. There's a shit ton of shadow. Okay? Um, and yet, the familiarity. So, what is happening is that the myths are evolving, the myths are changing, there are going to be new myths. It's going to touch on the cloning project, and this is where a lot of the old trajectories have to go, but because those things are so embedded with rituals that are beyond horrifying. Okay, then, but this is also why these things come to the surface. There's Chiron next to Eris right now. It's Chiron next to the House of Orange. It's healing the wound around our very weird lineage. Why am I saying very weird? Because for me, it is something that happened through ritual. For other people, they were physically cloned. And people try to understand. Now, the juxtaposition is obvious. My mother insisted on natural birth with a man that she loved, even if it would be not the man she was married to, by everyone knowing, agreeing, and informed. And it was my father, not by blood, which is very funny because my surname is Young Blood, and my mom kept that name after the marriage. It just sounded like easier to, I don't know, easier to pronounce. I have no idea. Not that Young Blood is easier to pronounce. And and I was laughed at for not knowing how to pronounce my surname, which you know, which brings back the jabs about real estate. But here is the thing. Um, mm, 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 mm. And it's a big discovery if this is one. And this all became from a joke. Mercury also rules jokes, and she's going next to my Mercury. As somebody was mocking me for, yes, this is the skulls and bones. God damn. We really are the problems in the world. Oh my God. And here is the thing. Um, okay. Oh gosh, I think I'm gonna have to upload it into my other channel as well, because I kind of feel like I have surpassed my recording quota for today. So, well, I will need to do. I would need to. And I had this insight that the cloning project, the Ubermensch project, because I thought it was a German thing, that the Ubermensch project would need a revision because, and remember when I talked about biodiversity? So, my gosh, thanks for clarifying to me. And how much we would need to change the rituals and so on. And then it's like, VOC. VOC. Um, Something was resonating. With the gate in the background. Oh gosh. New Netherland colony. New York Harbor. 1989. And it's funny that his name Half Moon. It was okay. Somebody was mocking me that I was building half moons in the Negev to bring in the water to reforest the area, and that was like shown half moon. This is the half moon. Dutch East India. Now, wow, something is more local than one thought, and yeah, I need to see a chart for this. Now, people need to understand that in those societies, there is a gnosis, there is a channeling, there is things go. Finally, I'm getting finally. Mars day, Mars hour. And ascended next to Deneb Algedi. Mid heaven close to Antares. Mars in Sag. My 10th house. So, wow. I think this is a sign. It tells us about the Eris return, basically, for Dutch East India. Because, and remember, I got in. Let's see when is the next eclipse, because. Okay, we're gonna have to. So we don't have eclipses in December. January. Eclipse in Aquarius, February 17. We're not effectively in the shade of eclipse, but we're effectively nearing the shade of eclipse. Uranus goes direct at 27 Taurus. Solar eclipse in Aquarius, but the node's still in Pisces and Virgo, I reckon. Yes, 9, degree 9. And this is the eclipse that we're gonna have with Saturn Neptune. Chiron's going to be direct. I saw something to do with eclipse when I was doing the talismans. Now I know that there is a story about Esau's children, because they're like redhead or something, but it's like most of the people are actually not redhead anymore. like um like VOC. And this is exactly the Eris return. Eris return, we're gonna have Neptune meeting Eris in the coming 15 years. So in 500 year cycle is nothing, um, and we're still, because Eris is, you know, still in Aries, then we still experience that. $1600. I will not look into the astrology of that right now, but recording the deep emotional relation. And people were also happy when I was seeing that. They were like extremely happy that I'm finally seeing that. I remember when I was shown certain, you know, things about United States, and I was shown this is not your future, this is your past. And you know, in those type of occasions, one can only say, is it trolling? Is it real? Like, but same people say that about me very likely. Um, and then, unfortunately, when we talk about ritual abuse, some of the most horrendous things were happening as well, which we're gonna need to change as a society for it to sustain, because and it has to do with wealth. There's a lot of things I'm beginning to understand in my life and completely differently. This is why I care so much about sexual sovereignty, because that was the core thing that was violated in the creation of that society. Now, with Neptune going over Eris, there's going to be expansion, isolation, having to surrender the growth of something, but also having to surrender how small something is. Which means it can mean both that something is way, way more megalithic, and if there was ideation, there can be miraculous healing by healing from that ideation, or putting on either a pedestal or diminishing. I remember Trudy spoke with me and she was like, I cannot stand anything Dutch and so on and so forth. And I'm like, this is a global issue. The issues that we have, and not only that, even the indigenous societies, they had their own issues to deal with, and each and every one of our societies would need to deal with its own issues. It's opportune for invasion, colonial, and here are my concerns for Dutch East India, which is currently Netherlands or House of Orange or whatever the lineage, which includes the United States. And this is at least of what I know. It includes, everybody knows that, right? I cannot I cannot pretend that it's not like that. And this is where we're susceptible to have a code orange. We're susceptible to be invaded truly, not just by, treason. And Sedna is in the third house of 1800 chart of Netherlands. I'm going to need this chart. I think I did VOC chart. And my concern is that we're susceptible to be invaded because of all these things that they keep trying to silence the discourse about. But if we don't tend to that, we will be invaded. And unfortunately, it's, the usual nature of invasion is that how the society kind of treats the people in its 12th house, jails, hospitals, all these things I talk about, is how it is treated. What the heck? Now it gives me the Vedic astrology. Dutch East India. They're going to give me the 1500, which probably correlates. I looked at this chart in the past because 1609 was the half moon. Now Mercury is also the connected with being orange, but also with humor, cunningness, trickery, stealing, law, innovation because it's alchemy, poison because Mercury, and the little details. Now that Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius, Mercury 0 degree Virgo, okay, the Virgo to the detail. And Moon 27 degrees Virgo, Moon on my IC, and Juno. Midheaven in Leo with the Sun in Leo, Venus Leo, Lilith 22 degrees Leo, Uranus in Aquarius. Uranus in its home sign with Saturn in its home sign. Saturn not too far from Deneb but not exactly in orb. Ketu in Cancer. Ketu closer to Procyon, not conjuncting Procyon. And Rahu in Capricorn. Saturn in a world corporation. Pluto in Eris. Jupiter in Capricorn. Neptune in Cancer. And it's funny, I found out about it by somebody making a joke of me digging half moons. Ascendant 0° Scorpio. Mars in Mercury sign. Jupiter is going to be closer to Sirius, but Saturn here is going to be the eclipse of the eclipse. The eclipse. Okay, this is eclipse that they're going to talk about as the eclipse because of Saturn Neptune. Okay, Sun and Moon are ruled by Saturn, and Saturn conjoins Neptune on the world degree in Eris, the astrology world, East West, red pill, blue pill, secret society, not secret society, in Epstein list, victim of Epstein list, has been talking about it for about a decade. Because the Soviet Union fall was kind of like somewhere in Capricorn. This is world degree. And people are going to remember this eclipse as the eclipse. And I saw yesterday when I was doing the talisman that I patiently waiting a lunar cycle to open. I saw the eclipse coming in. I was shown this eclipse. It's gonna be the eclipse. And it's not for nothing that I talk about all these things. Beta Perseus, Moon of Netherlands, 1800 chart, is the entire thing that the foundation of red light districts is founded upon, and perhaps even House of Orange, because it's intelligence, okay? They use it as espionage, but and I said that there's epic fail because only the people with the sexual sovereignty can give the correct information. I'm receiving, I wasn't wrong about that. Now here's the thing, I have no idea what was the I have no idea. No, I really don't know. Okay, there even, I have a lot of divination in the ninth. I guess my lot of divination is kind of mythical because it's in the ninth house and in Scorpio and ruling over Pluto and ruling over Neptune and indirectly ruling over Uranus and ruling over Eris and ruling over the world degree and and I have kind of like, just a couple of thing much is like Saturn, Pluto, and Mars. Mars on the 22 ruling, and so I guess that's kind of like it carried the weight. Okay, it carried the weight of like, and here's the thing. There are many things that, it's usually like that when things are closer. How should I say that? We can divine on many things, but we're not always fully aware of like what is going to be like. Before COVID, I remember particularly in the astrology podcast, I think it was Kelly, that she said, I see limited, like the lockdown. She saw the lockdown, it says social distancing of some sort. Saturn in his home sign in Aquarius, kind of like society downs. And so this is where I saw sexual sovereignty is going to be so important for accurate prediction, and I don't even know, because I'm being told like it's not, you're not wrong about that, like, oh, you were right about that, but I don't know what was like what was the missing prediction, or what was the prediction that other people were missing. Now, for example, Eris people are like, oh, it's the LGBTQ, oh, it's the Palestinian struggle, or it's the Dutch project, that which was called Nibelungen and Ubermensch, the ritual abuse that they're doing with the bloodlines and stuff, and the clones of the dead. That's that's Eris' return. And none of my colleagues were like, uh. Sister of Mars. She created Trojan War. No. Normally, when Neptune crosses something, or an empire can fall. Sexual sovereignty the level of sexual sovereignty will determine, not just in women, not just in women. And here is why: the people that thought that they could get away with everything, and that's an Eris cycle. Let alone said now they're no longer alive, but an Eris cycle, if they're like clone of the dead, and then they are alive. And they were used for centuries of getting away with. I'm getting that even that could be wrong, and they were not, either that was omitted from history. But anyway, when a planet returns, when it's an Aries cycle, then I can get how people can think like that for 500 years, and then I was like, whoops, it's Aries. and, I'm getting people to say, now you see what I see. Now, Kingdom of Orange definitely did not invent certain things that particularly the things that we don't like, is usually like the um, at the same time, it's kind of like a due diligence for the cloning project. That's what I'm getting, this due diligence for the cloning project. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna grab something to eat, okay?